Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production. I'm your producer, Garnett L. Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask a question or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome for the first time our new host, Gift Pendleton.
Thank you. Welcome to season 4 of Invisible Women in Sport. I am your host, Gift Pendleton. This is my very first episode and I have the pleasure of welcoming Antonishia McRay, social responsibility with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lynx, the founder and CEO of the StartHERfive. Nisha, welcome and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Giff. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right. So just a little icebreaker when we first begin. I'm going to ask you a couple this or that questions. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. The first one is dribbling or passing?
Passing.
Offense or defense?
Offense.
Silk press or braids?
Ooh, silk press.
Almond shape? Almond shape or square nails?
Oh, definitely square. I will never have almond shape.
I agree. Wear flip-flops all winter or a turtleneck all summer?
Flip-flops, but my toes have to be done.
Understood, especially in Florida. I can't get past it. All right, this is the second to last one. Cook food at home or eat out?
You know, I like to be catered to, so I'm gonna go with eating food out.
As you should, especially it's your birthday month. As you should. All right, and might be the most important icebreaker question. Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead.
What is your favorite Beyonce album?
I'm part of Beehive, but I say all, but my favorite one is 4. It has like
4.
Dance music, sad music, I'm in love music. So it hits all things.
Okay, acceptable answer.
You know,
I guess we can keep talking.
Yeah.
All right, so just for everyone that's listening, could you just give us a basic overview of your sports background and kind of like how you got here today?
Yes. So my professional sports, working in sports kind of started back when I was an intern. I took a non-traditional route, I would say. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left undergrad. I took a sports psychology elective class and I was like, that could be interesting. So I kind of went back home. My mom let me stay at home to kind of figure it out. But then after that, she was like, you need to figure out what you want to do. So they always say, if you don't know what you want to do, you go back to school. So I went back to school. I started researching different grad programs that I wanted to attend. And then I saw that they did have a sports psychology program. So as I was researching, trying to figure out, like, can I make these deadlines? My grad program, they accepted me like a late admission. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a God thing. So that's how I got into kind of like sports psychology. I wasn't a former student athlete per se, as it relates to like doing college athletics growing up, but I did run track in high school just to kind of get to know different people that look like me. We moved from Miami to Georgia. So technically like all the Black people were either football team, cheerleading, or track and field. And at that point I was too old to learn any tricks. So we went with track and field. So that was that. And then I would say I kind of was late to the game. I didn't really have any internship experience when I did my grad program outside of learning how to do sports psychology and one-on-one consulting with different younger athletes. So I was at that point where I was almost done with grad school. I didn't really have any work experience to get into it. So what everybody says and all their parents kind of encourage you to just kind of look for a mentor, reach out to different people. So that's what I did. I had like 6 months left of grad school and I kind of just cold called, cold emailed 500, I would say 500 people of just like, hey, you have a title that I like. Do you think that you can give me like an opportunity to just talk to you about how you got your job, what kind of experience you needed? And I would say nobody reached back out to me but one person. And I think her just being open to it kind of just opened up the door for me to be able to work in sports. So at the time, she was my mentor, Christia. She used to work in college athletics. She's now transitioned into corporate America. But I would say if it wasn't for her, she kind of like opened up the door for me to kind of get to know the people that I do know now, and just kind of open up that. So that is kind of how I got through that piece, and just mentorship, and kind of her network became my network. And then from there, I got my first job at ODU. So then my first boss, Lamar Pottinger, he works at the NCAA. He kind of put me on and was like, I'm gonna kind of help you get to where you need to be and catch up. And then from there, he got me an opportunity to do an internship at University of South Florida. And then from there, I got a job, my first full-time job at Texas A&M, because somebody knew the person that was hiring and they were like, she's the person. And then from there, I got the role at UNC Charlotte. My family lives in Charlotte right now. So that was really a good opportunity for me to get back home. It was COVID and social justice, so that was cool. But after my experience with UNC Charlotte, I definitely knew with the landscape of just college athletics, I did know that that was a time for me to kind of like transition into professional sports. And it was a God thing, like I always say, because my friend who was in StartHERfive, she knew somebody that worked for the Minnesota Timberwolves at the time. So they helped me. So it was just all about networking and mentorships and people like connecting the dots.
Awesome. And I thank you for that, because one, you need the moment to brag about yourself, because individually, like coming from a non-traditional background, it's already challenging enough, like if you're coming from a traditional background, to just get internships, get in the careers, and for you to say you sent out over 500 like, connections, like that's awesome. So just to see where it's gotten you today is like really amazing. And so how would you say that, do you have any tips or tricks on finding a mentor, considering that you come from a non-traditional route, and, just anybody that's listening?
Yeah, I would say the one thing that kind of helped me is when I was looking for a mentor, outside of just asking people for informational interviews, I've tried to look for people that I feel like we had common interests. So one thing about Christia, we're both members of Delta Sigma Theta. So that was like one thing I knew we were automatically going to connect with. We're both from the same sorority, and we pretty much have the same principles when it comes to that, because most of the time when you join a sorority, you all have the same like-mindedness. But then from there, reaching out and just saying, hey, I don't know everything, and I know that you have a better platform or you're more knowledgeable in this area. I think that kind of shows people that you're in it for the right reasons. And that kind of helped me. So just being humble, but then also finding people you think would have kind of similar interests and backgrounds as you.
Awesome. I love it. How do you feel that your master's in sports psychology has prepared you for where you are today?
Great question. I definitely think that it has prepared me from a people solving kind of background. I would say a lot of people that are kind of like my counterparts, they have either like a sports administration or sports MBA kind of degree. And I would say for me, what I really took away from my grad program is kind of getting to the roots and really knowing where the causes come from. So when we were taking our grad school classes, we were trying to figure out like, why does this person react in this way? Why did this person be triggered by this, or how does their mental toughness affect their performance on and off the field? So we really took a deep dive into just kind of being a problem solver. And that kind of helps me in my day-to-day, where it's, yes, there's a problem and there's a reaction that comes out of that, but what is the kind of like the foundational work of why, who, what, when, where, why, how? So we really got a good idea of like what that looks like. So it's helped me to really just kind of be creative with problem solving and not just always thinking that's just how a person is.
Definitely. You briefly talked about, a lot of the different roles that you've had, being at the collegiate level as well as now at the professional level in the NBA. What strong suits do you think that college athletics in the NBA do well?
College athletics, I will say, they do a really good job of making the student athletes have to do certain things, where in professional sports, you really can't make them do anything that they don't want to do. But the college athletic space with the student athlete development space, just because that's what I kind of was a huge advocate for, it helps them to kind of be self-sufficient. It helps them to see themselves outside of just their identity as an athlete, but as a whole holistic person. And I think when you have the right people in the student athlete development roles, it kind of helps, show student athletes that I can capitalize on NIL deals, I can capitalize on my brand, I can capitalize on who I am. And then they go off to be great leaders, CEOs of companies, entrepreneurs, or whatever you may say. But I think that is what college athletics really does. So I guess I'm a little biased in that. But then I would say I've been in the NBA now 3 months, going on 4. And what I've seen is they're player focused. And that makes a huge difference, because I think sometimes we forget that they are 2 people. So when you're trying to make sure that they understand their platform and they understand why they have to have different nonprofit organizations and things like that, that shows that they don't just kind of like throw them off to the wolves. So, and then they're also, I would say, in the professional athletic space, especially in the NBA, it's kind of forward thinking when it's like, do the right thing. You don't really have to wait for something kind of bad to happen. You kind of get ahead of it before it gets too chaotic in this social media day and age.
Definitely. And considering that you now left the collegiate space, what improvements do you think still need to be made?
Yeah, I would say in collegiate athletics, you definitely, for me, I would say more support for support staff. I think that's just a constant thing that people have been bringing up, but it is something that is very important. I think you get a lot of people who are now questioning if they want to even stay in college athletics just because of the lack of support. And I think when you show people that you care about them on an individualistic standpoint, then they're more likely to go to bat for you. They're more likely to go above and beyond and do the work that is necessary. So I do think across the board in all levels, when you have a better idea of how you can support your staff that is supporting your student athletes, it just makes for a better culture and a better feel for what the work that you're doing day in and day out. Even if the money doesn't always add up, there's other ways that you can support staff. So money can't always be the forefront, but if you can't, then I think you should still be doing a lot more to make them feel seen and heard.
Definitely, because without the support staff, nothing can get done. No one's able to wrangle in student athletes or anything in that nature. I know that firsthand.
Listen, I think we both can agree on that one.
Definitely. And considering that you talked about you didn't necessarily play basketball, you were more interested in track, and you didn't have a traditional route into the industry, what solidified your drive, and like what was the point where you knew that you wanted to work in the NBA?
Yeah, I would say just having the opportunity to kind of do something different. Growing up, my family, like I grew up in a single parent household, so my mom was an educator, and then my middle sister, she also was an educator that just kind of transitioned. So seeing myself doing something different was one motivator. But then when I got into collegiate sports and now in the professional space, it's all about kind of like legacy and how I can create memories for my family. I think one of the perks of being able to work in sports and work in professional sports is you're able to provide them with different unique experiences that other people may not get to. So it really humbles me and reminds me that like I get to do a job that a lot of people would love to have. And a lot of people are like, man, I would love to be in her shoes. So when I think about like what keeps driving me and what keeps motivating me is like, if I was able to do this in the 5 years that I first started in, like 2017 to now, the next 5 years is going to look totally different. And I'll be able to provide those kind of opportunities, not only for my family, but for my friends too, because they support me and they encourage me to go after the things that I want to do on a day-to-day too. So
definitely
putting my family on, putting my friends on,
we love it, but it definitely
Might
takes
as
a
well.
village. It's not something that you can do alone. So
Yes.
definitely an awesome experience. And I'm currently in grad school and every day is a fight, and because of that, sometimes it can be challenging to not necessarily see the finish line, but see how this experience will, pan out in the future. Like, obviously, I have goals and I have aspirations, but you can't always see in the long run. So for someone that's already finished grad school, how do you think that your grad school experience has played into like who you are today as an individual?
Yeah, I would say it's played a part in knowing that time is fleeting, right? So when I left grad school, I thought I was automatically behind. Like I was a 25-year-old doing my first, internship in college athletics where people are doing their internships at 21, 22. So I really did feel behind, but it's really about the circle that you put yourself into, especially in grad school, when people can pour into you and encourage you and say, hey, your timing is your timing, as cliche as it sounds, it really is. Like, I don't think that I would be here if I had to go a different route. I just don't feel like that would happen. So I had to meet certain people along the way. I had to unlearn and not meet certain people along the way, or you know how sometimes like you feel like people have played you, so that kind of motivates you a little bit more. So that kind of motivated me too. Like, they didn't believe in me, so I can show you better than I can tell you kind of motivation. And that's what you get in grad school. You get so many no's and so many people say you're not qualified or you need 10 internships before you get a full-time job. And you're like, it's 2023, the world requires bills. Like, we need to pay our bills and all these inflation. So it's discouraging, but just know, like, if you have the right people around you, their network becomes your network. And at the end of the day, like, your work will speak for you and people will have no problem just saying, hey, Gift, you did a really good job, executing the podcast series. I would love for you to orchestrate something like this for my company. So.
Awesome. Yes, I definitely need that encouragement right now. I just got out of class and, it's just one of those days. But honestly, just speaking with you is just a reminder of what is possible. So I really do appreciate you for being here today and, just hearing your story. So yes. And moving on to where you currently are in Minnesota. And I know it's cold up there right now. It's snowing. I'm from Chicago. My people just told me it's snowing in Chicago. Yeah. I can only imagine what it's like for you right now, but that big transition and being someone from Miami, such a warm, like nice climate, to now, unfortunately, a little bit colder. What support system have you built in Minnesota to just help you with your transition here?
Yeah, I definitely would say my support system is back at home, and my friends and my family, like, I would say they have really been an anchor for me. I would say I talk to my mom or my sister every 2 to 3 days. And then my best friends, if I'm not talking to one, I'm talking to another one. And they kind of encourage me because I'm not scared of moving, but it also is like, how do you find community? How do you find friends in a new environment? So they kind of encouraged me to get out and say, hey, it's okay. Like, you've done it before, you can do it again. And that just kind of reminds me of like, I am a people person at heart. I don't really like to be to myself. So people naturally gravitate towards me, I would say. So when I do have the chance to get out in Minnesota, I've already started planning for my coworkers and I later today, because like you said, my birthday's tomorrow, we're going to a happy hour. So it's stuff like that. Like, it's cold, but put on a coat, go outside, have a good day. But then also making sure like your solid day one people from when you first started, you're keeping in with them, you're not shutting them out and saying, hey, I'm too tired to talk, even if it's just being on the phone cooking. We do that too. So shout out to them.
Definitely. And I guess what I'm hearing from you right now is just, making the best out of the situation that you have. If that's a big parka right now, that's a big parka. And, just also like reaching out to the people that you already have in your circle, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I definitely hear that for sure. And what are 3 moments in your career that have reminded you of your why or what you're currently doing and like kind of solidified that, you were on the right path?
Yeah. I definitely would say the first one was finding my mentor. I wouldn't even say she's my mentor. Like, she's really like a big sister, like family person to me, because I think with her just advocating for me and then just introducing me to other people in this space, it really has trajected my path. And just like, I could have gotten there, but without her help, it's really kind of helped. So I would say that. My second one would be creating StartHERfive. That was like really big. Just because like we were talking about gift, sometimes you keep hearing no and you're like, I know I'm qualified. Like, I know I have what it takes. So when I was able to kind of rally the other 4 that do StartHERfive with me, of like, we have the same experience, we have the same passion, and we have the same things in common, of just trying to make a platform for women and young girls that look like us to be able to be in this space and not feel like they don't belong. And it's that whole idea of like, if nobody's going to invite you to the table, you create your own table. So that's kind of what we did. So when God gave me that vision, it went from like a vision to like actually being something that people actually like. I was like, wow, just imagine if I spent more time pouring into like where can we be? So I would say that. And then the third one is more personal. It was recently my mom and my little brother, they came to Minnesota, and I was able to get them tickets to the Miami Heat game, because we're technically Miami Heat fans. So just that opportunity of like her coming and being able to see me work, but then also get the fruits of my labor, that was like, you're on the right path. So like, if ever there's a hard day, I'm like, I'm doing this for my friends, I'm doing this for my family, I'm doing this for my future family so that they can have memories and different experiences like that. So I'm a big family person. I'm a big, how do we create legacy? How do we create family empowerment, legacy, and things like that? So when I see where I've been and where I'm going and where I can keep going, it just kind of keeps me motivated to kind of keep pushing forward.
Definitely. And I really like that you're talking about only your personal experience, but also just your personal passion project, which is StartHERfive, and how that has just like, blossomed. And would you like to talk a little bit more about that for anyone who's listening?
Yeah, I mean, StartHERfive was really just an opportunity for us to kind of get together as girlfriends and talk about just our experience working in sports. I think sometimes we get afraid of talking about things that actually matter, because you're like, oh, well, this person who's hiring will hear how I feel, or this person will kind of translate it into something that it wasn't supposed to be. But when we all came together and was like, no, this is a really dope idea. Like, how can we make sure that this is something that people can relate to, resonate with, and kind of feel empowered and inspired by? It kind of just took off from there. So I'm just happy that they decided like this was good enough for them to kind of spend their time and energy into it, because I think as we continue to go throughout the years, it's just going to get bigger and better, and being able to impact different people. And then kind of like I was saying, the legacy piece, how are we able to part gifts to the next generation? How can they, come into StartHERfive and create a tribe for themselves? So. I think we lost.
Yeah, I think that Gift may be having some technical difficulties. So because she's on the university campus, I know they've been having some challenges. So she's gonna get back on.
Yep.
But, while she's trying to get back on, can you talk to us about how you connected with the ladies with StartHERfive? In fact, 3 of them have been guests on Invisible Women in Sport. You're the 4th one, and we've already talked about getting the 5th one on as well. But how did you get together with those 4 women and create this dynamic platform for women?
Yeah. So it's actually really interesting because I did not know that Crystal, Kayla, and Sable all went to the same grad school. I just knew them in different ways. And then me and Grace, we were in a group meet together. And we were like, did you see this? What happened? There was an instance where something happened. We're like, this person was calling out this person. Is like, that shouldn't be the case. Like, if they're really asking a question about how to navigate this issue, we shouldn't be making light of it. So we had talked on the side, and we were like, we need to create something for ourselves. Me and Sable met because she knew Lamar. And like I said, Lamar was the first person that kind of gave me my first job in college athletics. So she was under him. So he connected us. He was like, oh, I think y'all would vibe together. Me and Kayla, we were on Women in Leaders in College Sports in a group together. And then me and Crystal, we did ELS, Emerging Leaders Seminar together. So those 3 different cases were all kind of interesting. And then I knew, from the interaction that we had, I was like, I just got to see if they're down for it. And I asked them each individually, would you know? And then when I put them all together, they're like, oh, I know these people. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. I didn't know that. So it was just like a God thing that 3 of them already knew each other, and they were like really, really best friends. And then me and Grace came in because Grace also was not a former student athlete. So we kind of connected on that and was like, how do we kind of navigate these spaces as Black women? So I pulled her into it, and she got to know Sable, Grace. She also got to meet Kayla, Sable, and Crystal. So
fantastic. And in fact, Kayla used to be a GA and was in the part of the early production of this platform, Invisible Women in Sport. And then to have her come on as a guest, it was just amazing to see it come full circle. How do 5 women who are so busy and in different parts of the country, like you all are in professional sports, NCAA headquarters, all are all over the place and doing phenomenal things, and I know it's busy. How do you find and make time for StartHERfive?
Some, like you said, with 5 different people, 5 different personalities, you just have to be intentional about it, right? So we are all bought into what we're trying to accomplish with StartHERfive. So there are some times where we have to give each other grace and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make the podcast recording today. I'm not going to be able to make the business talk meeting. But we recently just had a business talk meeting, I would say last week. And we just kind of were being very real and honest and saying, hey, how are we going to hold each other accountable? We're about to go into season 4. The people really love what we're talking about. So how can we continue to make this a thing? With me being in the NBA, I'm not only working NBA, I'm going to work the WNBA with the Lynx too. So there is no real downtime for me. Whereas sometimes in the summer, it is a downtime for people that work in college athletics. So we're just trying to remind each other of what that looks like. And we have a process in place. Hey, tell us days that you cannot meet at all. And then tell us days that you're okay, this can work. So that's kind of how we do it right now. And we're getting back on track and just being consistent and giving, the people what they want.
That is awesome. So with all of that busyness, because you all are professional women, but then StartHERfive is a personal project for you, a personal passion. What does Nisha do for her own personal self-care?
Everything. I'm just kidding. My friends know and my family. If I can do self-care all the time, I would, but no, I would just say doing small things like getting my hair done, getting my nails done, massage, going to warmer states. I love being around the beach, like water. Those are all things that kind of excite me and kind of calm me when I feel kind of like uneasy and things like that. So self-care is huge on my list, but you have to be responsible because sometimes self-care does take money. So I balance it out.
Awesome. That's awesome. You have to make sure you take care of yourself so you can continue to be productive, to establish that legacy that you were talking about. How would someone get information about StartHERfive or start to follow or connect? How can they find you?
The easiest thing, we've kept all our social media handles the same. So it's just StartHERfive, and we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter right now. And we do have a Facebook page if you are into Facebook.
Phenomenal. I'm putting it in the chat for those who are here on the Zoom with us. Is Start, START. Her is in all caps, HER. And then 5, the number 5 is spelled out FIVE. That's correct, right, Nisha?
Yes, sir.
So please connect with these phenomenal women. They're all doing wonderful things. So I'm coming up on the last question to close out. And so for all of our audience members that are here, please put your questions in the chat right now for Nisha so she can answer those for you. But Nisha, you're having a birthday tomorrow, so happy early birthday.
Thank you.
And I know it's going to be great and phenomenal for you. But and you're not old. So what would you tell your younger self, or what would you tell yourself at maybe in college or at the beginning of your career? What's something that you could share, some words of wisdom that you would share with yourself if you could go back and have that conversation with you?
I definitely would say don't rush it. I think because I did have, like I said, a non-traditional way of going about working in college athletics, I always felt behind and I always felt like I had to catch up and be up to par with my peers. And that kind of made me stressed or had to carry a burden that I didn't have to carry. So when I look back, I'm just like, everything is going to work out how it needs to work out because you had to meet these people along the way so that you can get to where you are right now. And there's no way that would have happened if you tried to rush the process and things like that. So I would say just kind of be in the moment and just know like what's for you is for you. And if you're a believer, like God will make a way. And when you go knocking on the door, He gonna open it if it's supposed to be for you. So I was knocking and He opened it and I just walked on through.
It says knock and the door shall be open, right?
Listen, that's what He's saying.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to go to our chat, and we have a question in the chat from Maya King. Maya King actually used to be a graduate assistant here in the program, and she was on the Invisible Women in Sport production team for last season. So Maya, welcome. It's good to have you. Her question to you, Nisha, is can you talk about the importance and sometimes the struggle of showing up as your authentic self?
Yeah. I would say one of the biggest struggles for me, I would say just kind of like being a Black woman and showing up authentically is sometimes it's not always received well. And I think one of the things that my mom has always told me is as long as you're professional, then it really doesn't matter. You're not going to be everybody's, cup of tea, but as long as you're doing your work to the best of your ability and you know that you're doing it with integrity, then showing up as you is is the best way you can be. For me specifically, like I like wearing acrylic nails, I like to have my hair done, I like to have color in my hair. So if none of those things are affecting my work productivity and work, how I show up to work, then if somebody has something to say about that, then that's more like a them thing than a me thing. And you can kind of meet people where they are and have that conversation and say like, how can we best relate? But at the end of the day, if you are comfortable in what you're putting out and putting out on the table, then that's all you can, do.
Awesome. Awesome. I think we have Gift back. So before I bring her back on, I had a question for you. My question is even though this is Invisible Women in Sport and it's about women, we have a lot of men that support this platform. What can men do to genuinely be allies for women of color in this sports industry?
I mean, that's a great question. And I think I have been the benefactor of having a male champion in my corner. Like I said, the first person that actually gave me a job and was able to like allow me to work under him and go into meetings and go into these different spaces was Lamar. So if more men know that they have that platform, inviting other women into those spaces helps, right? So I wouldn't have learned how to carry myself in certain situations or certain meetings if I hadn't said, hey, Lamar, can I come with you to this director's meeting that you have on campus? Hey, can I see how to craft an email that's going to our athletic director? What does that look like? And what are some of the things that you want to have, you don't want to have? How not to be super wordy in an email and get straight to the point and what is necessary. I think some of those little things are overlooked, but the fact that men invite other women into the conversation helps. And then if you know that a woman was the person that created the idea, giving her credit when it's due. I think sometimes it's like everything's going so fast and you're like, oh, that was just a great idea. You can stop and be like, oh no, that was Nisha's idea, or that was Maya's idea. So really thankful for her creativity and her, bringing this to our attention. So I think the more time that you have your name being spoken up in different places, then people provide you and give you the respect that you need, even though you would hope that it's natural, but that's not always the case.
Great advice. So men out there, I hope you're listening. Nisha, I think I do those things, but now that you said it to me and reminded me, I'm going to be more conscious and intentional about it as well. So I'm going to bring Gift back. And Gift, there is a question in the chat from Candace. So is your camera working, Gift?
If you could actually turn it on, that would be nice. I think you have to have that.
Let me see.
Yeah. Also, I'm having a hard time finding the chat.
Okay. So I'll ask the question while she's trying to get her video to come back on. But Candace Johnson, thank you for your question, Candace. Candace is asking you, Nisha, can you talk about your why and what drives you even after you've reached your dream?
I would say getting to the NBA has been like a thing that has been on like my vision board for a long time. But I would say what kind of motivates me, like I said earlier, is just that capacity to be able to provide a different experience for my family. I think we are very blessed just due to our circumstances and things like that. But kind of having that opportunity to just say like, hey, these is what we started with and this is where we can go. That kind of motivates me. And when I have like hard days or bad days, I'm like, somebody else has it a little bit worse than I do. And I actually get to do something that a lot of people would love to do. So figuring out like perspective and mindset and say like, hey, in 5 years from now, I could be the first person to do XYZ, or because somebody before me was able to do it, I can be, this Black vice president of XYZ, or I can be a chief experience or chief community impact person because of the people before me. And that's only going to happen if you kind of stay motivated and dedicated to doing the work and continue to like be and pour into yourself and letting yourself know that you're worthy, you're valuable, you deserve it. Because sometimes when you do get a lot of no's, it can be discouraging and you could stop. But when you stop halfway in the race, then you don't get to the finish line to be able to see the fruits of your labor.
Definitely, and that's awesome. And I want to appreciate you for, bearing with me on my first episode and being the guinea pig as the internet and everything, as well as Garnett for being an amazing co-host today. So I just wanted to say thank you one more time. Happy early birthday. And, I'm very excited to see what's next for you. So we'll definitely be in touch for sure.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. And we want to say thank you to all of the support for the Invisible Women in Sport. We are a non-for-profit organization with other programs that impact various social justice issues. We rely on donors and sponsors to stand with us and support our ongoing work. Please use the QR code on the screen to make a financial donation. Your financial support is greatly appreciated. Special thank you again to our host, Nisha, and the Invisible Women in Sport team, our producer, Garnett Overby, and our senior advising consultant, Matt Edelson. Thank you to all of the organizations that registered for Miss Nisha's episode. We would like to extend a special shout out to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Minnesota Lynx, and StartHERfive. We would like to extend a special shout out to the Institute for Sport and Social Justice. Please follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and informed about future programs at Institute SSJ. If you ever miss an episode, we've got you covered on our YouTube channel at SSJ. We have all our episodes posted and up to date. Also, we have a lot of inquiries if you want to connect about internships. If any of our supporters or members have internships available, please send your information to our producer, Garnett Overby, at sportandsocialjustice.org, so we can send it out and people will reach us out. Viewers, we need your feedback to make Invisible Women in Sport the best it can be. Following today's episode, you'll receive a short survey. It will take about 90 seconds to complete. Please complete and submit it to us. And once again, I'm your host, Kip Pendleton, for Invisible Women in Sport. See us now. Thank you and see you guys again soon.